Hi, kitty cats. Today I have no script, no notes. Instead, I'm taking any and all questions about identity, gender, and what it's like living a life of a transgender woman in 2026. Is anything off limits? For the most part, no. All I ask is that your questions be relatively clean, respectful, and of course asked with a genuine interest to understand as opposed to just berate me. But other than that, well, let's get started and see, I guess. Ask me anything. Um, Before I get started, I will let me do my own opening plugs. I'm Dr. Amethysta Herrick. I am a scientist and a content creator. I discuss identity and gender using the scientific method. I guess I lied. These are notes, but you can find much more information about me and the work that I do at my website that you'll see right down below there, which is purplepockland.com. Hello, Dudco123. You can find, if you go to that website, purplepockland.com, you'll find a page about me. You can find the social media networks I'm on. There's a blog page. You can read the articles I write. There's a podcast page. You can listen to and watch the podcasts I record with exceptionally interesting people. There's a page if you want to join our Discord server. You can be part of the solution by being part of the discussion. And finally, if you're interested in some of the work that I do to help people through issues with identity and gender, I do hypnotherapy as well, so check that out. If you want to support my work, you can get a subscription on the website for as little as $5 a month, and you can even just sign up from a free newsletter that publishes about every 2 weeks, typically on the full moon, at least, and it's the full moon today, so here's my full moon top, and blessings of the full moon. And if all you do is follow me on social media and like and share all my stuff, that is amazing support, and I thank you for it. Finally, I love to publish other people's work on the website, so if you have some original work in identity or gender, feel free to email me. There is a contact page on the website, which, for the last time, at least for now, is purplepockland.com. All right, let me see who we have here. So let me see. Oh, Lucia Eden. I've never seen you before. Luika. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Luika Eden. Cool. Using neo pronouns, even better. Hi Margie, obviously. Hi Margie. And hello to Angela as well. While I wait for whatever, I want to talk about why I'm doing an AMA, because you may recall I said on Tuesday anyway, that I was going to make a hypnosis video on Wednesday. I was going to do a transgender joy yesterday, and like maybe one more thing. I was thinking about one more thing, and I did none of it. I had a pretty crappy week, for what it's worth. I flew to Los Angeles. I cleaned out my mother's house, and I think I'm just going to say, and I've never done this, so now I have some experience, but it is really depressing to see a person's life reduced only to possessions, the possessions that they acquired over over a lifetime. It is even worse, in my opinion, to see those possessions ultimately pawed through by people who didn't even know the person. So I got back yesterday, and I'm just going to say I just did not have the energy to make a whole lecture. Obviously not the hypnosis thing either, the transgender joy. So I didn't bother, especially when I love interacting with you directly anyway. So we're going to do an AMA, Ask Me Anything. Just drop questions in the chat. Margie, I don't know if you'll notice, but you can actually right-click on these things to pin them if you see some good questions. I will answer them in the order. I'm going to answer them in the order that makes the most entertainment, for what it's worth, because isn't that what this is about? If I don't get to your question, I'm going to tell you it wasn't you, it was me. If you want to know what I'd say, though, you can send me an email. Like I said, there is the link right below, purplepockland.com. There's a contact page. If you really, really want me to answer your question, send me an email. Margie says my moon is definitely full after the fetish night. Hee hee. Okay. While I wait for any questions, I want to. So there's a major event that's happening tomorrow, today, maybe, if depending upon where you are in the world. It is Marilyn Monroe's 100th birth anniversary. And maybe you're like, wow, really? Why do you know that? June 1st, 1926, Marilyn Monroe was born. I've brought her up in quite a bit in a lot of live streams because I love Marilyn Monroe. She played a character in particular that I just love. I like the character, but the woman herself was so much more than all of the characters she played. So what I want to do is talk about my top 5 favorite Marilyn Monroe movies, which, you know, when you have a question, drop it in chat, please. But in the meantime, you're going to listen to my self-indulgent top 5 Marilyn Monroe movies. Let's see. So number 5, this is actually another piece of notes, I guess, but it's only 5 lines. That's 4 fingers. It's only 5 lines, so I think we're cool. Ooh, hang on. I'm actually looking at a good question, and I'm going to get that one, Margie. One sec. Because here's a question. So it's oh, you got it. Says okay. Oh, dang. Did I? Oh, there we go. All right. So Dudko says, since I have dyed hair. Wait, how do you know that? I'm kidding. Since you have dyed hair, do you also know how to get rid of hair dye? If you're talking about, so you dyed your hair, took almost a year to get blue out of your hair. Well, first of all, blue does stick really well. Reds tend not to, which is interesting because so when I get purple, often it'll fade into a more of a bluish sort of tint. But there are a few ways. Yes, the best way, actually, I mean, you were talking about hair. I was checking to see if you were talking about furniture, because there are beauty supply stores that do have bleaches that you can use to take stuff out of furniture. Wasn't what you asked. So how do you get it out? Honestly, the only way you're going to do it right is to use a bleach. These types of dyes here, I don't know if you're going to care about the chemistry here, but the chemistry is these types of dyes they're semi-permanent because they absorb to a surface. I happen to have a background in chemistry, so they absorb to a surface, but they also stick a little bit into what's called the cuticle of a hair. So each hair shaft has like it's almost like little flakes. They're like dragon scales. It's almost imagine dragon scales. And so that dye can slip in between dragon scales, or it can absorb to the surface. And so this is one of the differences among dyes. Permanent dyes open up the cuticle, slap them dye molecules in there, and then close up the cuticle. Semi-permanent dyes are halfway, and then temporary dyes, they absorb just to the surface. So it depends upon the dye as well. If it's a permanent dye, you're bleaching. Good luck. You mentioned blue, so I'm assuming it's a semi-permanent or a temporary. You can use a much weaker dye for that, much weaker bleach for that. But unfortunately, for the most part, what you're looking at is trying to destroy a chromophore, and that's tough. I don't know if that did well, but if you you said it was random, so all right. Since I've got a couple of questions, I'll do these in order. My number 5 top 5 Marilyn Monroe movie. So the number 5 comes in is Bus Stop. This is a movie from 1956. This is about 2/3 through Marilyn's career before she died in 1960. The reason why I like Bus Stop is first of all, I can't remember where the bus stop is. I think it's in Missouri. I'm trying to remember. But Marilyn Monroe has a horrible Southern accent. So bad. Just terrible. And it's really bad, but she plays this really genuinely almost kind of lost sort of character who's really, I mean, she's really just kind of a transitional type character. You're not even really supposed to care about her. And yet she really has this way of just coming on screen and you go, oh, look. So that's why I like that, because she's playing this really genuine Midwest kind of, innocent character, and she did that exceptionally well. So number 5 was Bus Stop from 1956. All right, here we go. I'm going to answer. This is a good one. This was a good one from Angela. Here we go. From Angela. Angela says she was a dominatrix, and she wonders if I ever tried BDSM. Really, after Tuesday, you're going to ask me these questions. Quick answer, yes. Quick answer, yes. I actually, there's going to be a little bit of background here first. There is somebody I interviewed in a podcast. Artemisia Divine is her name. You can find her on Apocalypse. I'll get to that. You can find Artemisia Divine on, I think that's actually her website, artemisiadivine.com. But you can even, like, if you just searched for it on my website, you can find that podcast. And Artemisia mentioned a good orgasm ultimately comes from resolving some paradoxes. She calls them the 3 paradoxes. And I don't even want to try to say this well, because I don't want to misrepresent what Artemisia does for work. But one of those paradoxes is your relationship with yourself. And I'm just trying to figure out how to put that. The reason I'm bringing this up is because the relationship, part of that relationship was, how do you get yourself into the situation where you feel safe enough? And this will sound like a counterintuitive. How do you feel safe enough to let yourself ultimately have an orgasm? In my opinion, a lot of BDSM is all about that, to get yourself into a situation, especially if you're submissive. You said you were a dominatrix, but one of the things. Oh gosh, I've just read somebody else's comment and I just got sidetracked. So I think, having somebody who is submissive, that's a way of like letting go of a little bit of responsibility, and you go, oh, I'm going to be able to have an orgasm because somebody else is taking care of this. So I'll just mention, I have always loved being restrained. I'm just going to throw that out there. I always like being tied up, or restrained in some way, let's say. Because it doesn't have to be ropes or cuffs or whatever. It could just be somebody else's body. They may be treading a fine line here. But what that does is, I think there were a couple of things. One is it resolves a paradox that lets me go, okay, I'm safe enough to allow myself to have an orgasm. But the other thing is that, as I was mentioning on Tuesday, if somebody else puts me in restraints, and I didn't say this exactly on Tuesday, but if somebody puts me into restraints, it must mean that they want to have sex with me, which means that I'm worthy in some way. And so, so I think that's where I'm going to go with that. So yes, absolutely. Got into BDSM, and that's, I think maybe that's the end of that question. Hopefully you like that. Apocalypse, bring the, group 555. Give me 1 second. I mean, it's funny. That was a good one, group. By the way, group, hello. I saw you in Amethyst Maze live when I was there. Thank you for coming over here. That's fun. So let's see. So Apocalypse 12345 says, what can a transgender person do if he can't transition? This is a really difficult question. There are 2 thoughts that I have. The first thought is like, do what you can. And I know that sounds, maybe that's a little disingenuous. Do what you can. The reason I say that is because, like, before I transitioned, I would wear toenail polish. Nobody saw my toes, especially when I worked at home. When I worked at home, I could do whatever I wanted. So I'd put toenail polish on, and if you're wearing shoes, that's, another way to hide it. I suppose if you're a lifeguard, maybe that's a little more difficult. Not the point. But do what you can, because maybe it's not even, it gives you at least some, what's the word I want to use? validation. It gives you validation that what you feel and who you are is absolutely okay, and you deserve to do those things. So that's one. If you can find anything, I don't care how small it is, if you can find anything, do it. The other thing that I would say, and this is much less, I mean, this is not disingenuous, but I've known several people. I mean, I think I would have been one of them in graduate school, who you go to work during the day in boy mode. And then you come home and you can do girl mode. And then on the weekends, you're girl moding the whole time. And then Monday morning comes and you go, oh, shit. And I know that's awful, having to hide who you are, but being able to express yourself even more than just, say toenail polish or something minuscule, something small that nobody can see, I think is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And another beautiful way to do that. You gave me a little bit of context. Oh, you didn't. It was somebody else. Okay. Hopefully that was good. Do what you can to validate yourself, primarily because you definitely deserve to feel validated. Okay. This is a good joke. If nothing else, it's a good joke. I mentioned I like being restrained in intimate situations. You must love the current laws. For what it's worth, group, I live in Colorado, which actually means the laws are pretty good. If you are transgender, I highly recommend, if you can somehow make it to Colorado, I highly recommend coming to Colorado. That being said, yes, some of these laws are really freaking ridiculous. I'm really disappointed to see you have essentially one guy who enabled a very vocal minority to do some hateful things. I'm going to give an opinion here. I believe, and we've seen this with many dictators, in our current administration's case, it's sort of accent on the dick, but we've seen this with many dictators. They come into power and people go, oh, we love them. And they go and they do tremendously horrible things. And then they start to lose favor. And they start to lose favor because the people, my wife and I were just talking about this, the people who initially supported them are the ones who get hit. They end up getting hit themselves. And they go, wait a minute, I supported this guy. How am I ending up being pounded by this? If you look at, who's being affected by high gas prices? Who's being affected by, Medicaid and Medicare being cut back? Who's being affected by high food prices? It's generally the people who are not in the 1%. And unfortunately, that means 99%, even if they supported the current administration, is affected by this. And so I believe very strongly, once this big pillar topples, once Trump himself is either impeached, or even if he just goes out of office, even if he just, if he finishes his term this time, he has no more that he can bitch about. There's just, he'd be like, okay, I have my 8 years, I'm all done. So I believe strongly that if once he goes out of power, since he's really the coordinator, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to step in and take over, pick up the mantle of being the MAGA chief. So my guess is that ultimately that goes away, and that will be why. So hopefully that one was good too. All right, so Dudko says he's a trans guy who knows that he won't be able to transition for at least the next 30 years. Oh gosh. And to be honest, he just ignores it and lives as a girl, even doing more feminine things than cis girls. So I know many people I have known many transgender women who said, well, I'm going to do this after I retire. Because some of them have jobs in construction. Some of them have jobs that are where it would be obvious that they were transitioning gender. obviously I don't know your whole story, Dudko here. I think I might challenge won't be able to. I know maybe you're saying like full transition, including whatever surgery, whatever. Um, but I would challenge that you couldn't do anything. And I don't know. At the risk of like sounding like I'm going to do a commercial, I'd love it if you reached out to me. I'm not asking for money, but it would be nice to have a conversation with you and just go, what can you do? Just have a conversation. So if you're interested, I'm here to talk. I'll say that. I'm here to talk to you. Oh, here we go. That one trans chick. Here we go. She says, first of all, hi Courtney. She says, set up for my question first. Oh boy, I'm just being covered by something. The first trans person she ever knew was a kid named Ash. Oh gosh, in her kindergarten class. He was a boy, he was 100% boy, and he never faltered on that in 6 years. Okay, and then here we go. It goes on to Ash never faltered despite nobody believing him, which I don't know how you do that. How you just go, oh yeah, well we don't need to believe you. So here we go. Courtney says, do I think trans kids in Ash's position, so it's specifically kids, should be allowed to go through their proper puberty at the same time as their friends? Oh, I see what you're saying. Age 10 to 12 to begin HRT. Oh, you asked me a hard question. What I'm going to do is tell you the official WPATH position here, of course, because I am a full voting member of WPATH, means I'm able to affect the standard of care, right? I found out at some point I'm legally liable for the standard of care. That's a little creepy. But the standard of care recommends nothing more than puberty blockers until the age of 18, right? Or maybe you didn't know. I think, Courtney, you and I already talked about this, but puberty blockers, that's not the same as being able to affirm yourself at the same time as your friends. Let's say you get to remain childlike and they get to begin to blossom. And I can understand the idea that would be, I know that would be difficult, of course, because you're watching, say you have friends who are girls and you're a transgender girl, and you're watching your friends become girlier and you're sitting there going, yeah, I've got 2 more years before I hit 18. So it's a tricky situation. I do know that in at least SOC 8, so the standard of care version 8, the age became slightly fluid. The general recommendation now is nothing more than puberty blockers prior to age 18, and that always needs to be a personal kind of thing. There's really no health care that you can just say can be a general thing. Every doctor has to examine a patient directly and go, well, this makes sense, it doesn't make sense. If you have a child who's going to off themselves, my particular opinion would be help that child, because don't take that chance. Don't take the chance of losing your child when what you could possibly do is let them, develop normally, happily. Let me say that, happily. So anyway, there we go. I know there was a little cagey. That's the official WPATH guideline, but those guidelines, some guidelines are intended to be only guidelines, and you look at the actual person and say, we're gonna figure something out. So, yeah. So there you go. Thank you, Courtney. That was actually a really great question. Puts me on the spot a little bit, which is fine because I kind of like to be put on the spot here. So, and so group, I don't know if this is in response to Dudco. Group 555 says social transitioning is still transitioning if the thing you struggle with is getting the medical side of it. And I'm with you on that. Even if you just have somebody, if your name is like Butch and you go, you know what, could you call me like something neutral? Like Robin. That's, even just a name can make a significant difference. So thank you so much, group. Perfect point. Wow, this is fascinating. I did not know this. So Dudko says in Poland, the laws are fine because the government just ignores the existence of transgender people, to the point that it's actually easy since the laws say nothing. So here's the thing. They shouldn't. Why would we expect that the government should have some say in a person's transition? These are medical and or social issues, or personal. I don't want to say social. Medical and or personal issues, and the government should just get the hell out of that. So, in my opinion, so you're saying the government ignores the existence of transgender people. Now, I don't know the extent to which they ignore them, and I don't know how, but I think that's kind of the way it should be. Like, that sounds normal to me. So, gonna run with that. Thank you. All right, now let me go to number 4. Number 4. My number 4 top Marilyn Monroe movie is from 1959. It's called Some Like It Hot. If you've seen this, you know that the two of the main characters are they dress up. I won't give the whole setup. Anyway, it's Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis. And Tony Curtis was like a heartthrob in the 1950s. So they dress up as women in this movie. That's not why I loved it, for what it's worth. I will tell you, there was a little bit of me that was like, so you can do this. Like, you can get a job, even if you have to wear a skirt. I mean, so you can do this. Part of me was doing that. The reason why I love this, why I love this movie so much, and I don't know, maybe this is dumb, but how do I say this? On set, sure, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon have phenomenal chemistry. They did on set, offset. So like in personal life they did, but Jack Lemmon's hilarious. He looks like he should get along with everybody. So, seems like he should. Although if you've seen an Odd Couple movie, maybe you'd go, not so much. Not the point. Moving on. So Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis have phenomenal chemistry, and on set, so meaning when they're making the movie, right, it looks like they have amazing chemistry. When they were not filming, Jack Lemmon hated Marilyn Monroe, and she hated him back. I'm trying to remember the exact quote. Jack Lemmon, there's at one point where there's a scene where they kiss. One of the two, either Tony Curtis or Jack Lemmon, and I'm blanking on that. I think it was Jack Lemmon. But he said, the quote I remember was, he hated her so much, it was like kissing Hitler. Presumably without the mustache, although. But he was just so hated her that that he just didn't want to have to act with her. And what I like about this, first of all, it's a funny story, but knowing that background, seeing them being able to like still plow through like a movie, I'm kind of like, wow. I mean, that's a testament to all three of their acting chops. So throw that one out there. What else do we have? Oh, hey, Genevieve is here. Hello. Oh, look at this. Fox says the 1% is looking like a delicious meal these days. I'm going to tell you, I continue to be surprised that our government goes, well, we can't tax them. What are they going to do without all their money? The average American household makes something like $53,000 annually. Household, I said. Average American household. The average 1%er makes a minimum of 8 times that. I'm trying to do math. Yeah, about 8 times that. Really? Like, these people can make a whole family work on $50K. You're telling me that at $1 million, $1 billion, you're gonna struggle? I'm calling bullshit. I'm just gonna say that. Please. That was maybe a bit overboard, but hey, Khaled. What do we got? The juiciest. Here we go. Margie's got I don't know, David and David. I say, welcome, welcome to the boomtown. All that money makes such a succulent sound, doesn't it? Oh, I didn't know this. Okay, here is a factoid. The word barbecue is from the French I don't, gonna mess this up. De la barbe à la queue, from the beard to the tail. Oh, referring to spit roasting a goat, or possibly some tech bro just saying. So Courtney says, sorry if you put me in an awkward position. No, not at all. Because the thing is, even though there's a sock, I mean, like, this is why there's voting. If somebody goes, well, we should just say like 10 to 12. Why are we restricting this? There is so much legal stuff going on that it's like, no way, we would not vote that. So, yeah, it was not an awkward position. I think it's a great question. So thank you, Courtney. I love this. Courtney says the government needs to affirm people's rights, but not restrict their freedoms. 100%. I'm going to give you a little heart for that. Is that coming up? Yeah, there we go. Looks good. 100%. Why would we expect a government to restrict other people's freedoms? Because that's just going to make us more comfortable. That should never be the point of a government. What that is like social norms made law. And that sucks. Just talking from a social psychology sort of standpoint. Margie, this is a good point. Margie said, oh, Raina. Hello, Raina. So Margie says she saw Some Like It Hot last year. She had mixed feelings about the screwball approach to gender. I'm not gonna deny. What I like about Some Like It Hot, that particular approach to gender, was that it was kind of like, listen, we shouldn't have to be limited. That was the way I take it. And it's not entirely true, because if I remember correctly, not if I remember correctly, there's a ladies' orchestra, and Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis are musicians, can't find a job, and they're like touring Europe or something. I don't, whatever. But, they're like, look, I can't get a job, so I'm going to do what I can to get a job. And in my opinion, like, why not? And this is going to be this is where this is going to come from, because I'm not diminishing your belief or your feelings here, Margie. When I was younger, not even not even all that far back, less than 20 years, let's say, maybe 30. At some point I thought, how beautiful would it be to be a midwife? And I'm saying 30 years ago. Angela could have done this easily. 30 years ago, I would have been a 20 some odd, very masculine presenting. And I know some of you have seen photographs, like I was very gothic. So I had, long black hair. And while I didn't look certainly traditionally masculine, I also didn't look particularly like, warm and inviting. So I could imagine going to like a midwife training sort of course and having people just kind of go, you may want to save your money. Okay, I don't know if you're going to do well as a midwife, but I thought, or a doula, excuse me, is what I'm saying. I meant doula. Midwife has other denotations now in the United States. So a doula, somebody who's there to help foster this life into the world. It sounded beautiful. I'm like, how amazing would that be? But I was masculine presenting. What are you going to do there? That is not a doula. And so I would love for the world to get to a point where they go, the way you look is not an indication of how well you're going to do a particular job. And if you go back to things like the 50s, certainly every doctor was a man, every nurse was a woman. It was obvious. I don't want to use the word gender coding, because that just seems, it's cliche. As a bit of a cliche, a bit hackneyed now. But it was a short hand way of going, well, this is an intelligent person because it's a man. And so that, like, that bugs me. So anyway, I get what you're saying, because the idea of just going, oh well, we can't make it into men's orchestra, so let's just slum it with the ladies, sucks. Agreed on that one. And I wish that gender was never a limit on what we want to do with our lives. I'm at the point where I should probably do one of my FCC mandated station identifications. I am Dr. Amethysta Herrick. I am a scientist and a content creator who talks about identity and gender. Today, what we're doing is an Ask Me Anything. So if you have questions about gender, identity, or what it's like to be a transgender woman in the year 2026, please pop. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Put those in the chat, and we'll talk about them. Let's see. Oh, look at this. Courtney says, "Farming While Beige." Now, I don't know this film. I guess this is a documentary. No, sorry, I guess not. Farming While Beige did a great video explaining exactly why the rich won't leave if they get taxed and if they do good. Of course, they're not going to go because we're their customers, if nothing else, which is why it makes sense for the 1% or whatever to help out, because then they continue to have customers and shit. And, that seems like it would be sensical, if nothing else. What do we got here? Hello, Tori Vorwerk. This is great, Margie. Thank you so much for bringing this up. So Margie says today she's writing a submission to the government. This is in New Zealand, protesting the BS gender definition bill. New Zealanders, because if you don't know, in New Zealand, somebody just floated a bill that would mirror basically what the UK is doing. And if you don't know about that, the UK Supreme Court ruled that sex, the word sex, specifically in the Equality Act of 2010, referred to biological sex. Now, nobody has an actual definition for this, because there is none. Biological sex should be a tautomer, essentially. It should that should be, I guess, a redundancy, because sex has only a biological characteristic to it. That being said, when the Equality Act was made, they probably intended the word gender, not sex. So somebody saw that, they went, "Ooh, that's a loophole. Let's exploit that." One sec. You've got somebody who said, "Okay, we're going to try to make this distinction between sex, which is something we don't know yet, and biological sex, which is much more strict. We still don't know." So nobody's come up with an actual definition, which is ironic, but the intent is to restrict transgender women in particular from going into spaces. It's ultimately going into spaces. So anyway, that was that background. New Zealand just floated a bill that would be similar, referring specifically to the phrase biological sex, which, once again, I just got to go, really? Oh my gosh. So good. Margie is writing a submission to protest that BS gender definition bill. She goes on to say New Zealanders overwhelmingly don't want to be like the US, right? And Margie says she has also experienced transmesia. I'm going to tell you, I'm not familiar with that word. Margie, could you define that in the in chat, please? So let's see. So group says over here, I forget you're in New Zealand. Was that right, group? I'm trying to remember where you are. No. You're in your, you'll tell me. Anyway, if you earn over the equivalent of 91,000, gets taxed for 50%. From the Netherlands. Thank you. I was blanked on that. If you look at the US, If you go back to about 1960, you see the same. Like, we changed this. There was the Reagan years in particular that dropped it significantly. Um, and since then, we've thought that's just the norm. It's a fascinating thing. For some reason, this came up with my wife earlier too. There's I don't know if I'd call it a saying. There is a there is a I don't know, a truism. Let me just use that. They say it takes 3 generations to erase a memory. I don't remember who said this. Historians probably, but something around it takes 3 generations to erase a memory. Generations generally, 15, 20 years. So you're talking about 50 to 70 years. Like right now, we don't really know anything about what happened in World War II. Like, truly, we don't know anything. If somebody wrote a new history book and said, oh, I did a shit ton of research here, you could teach your children that, and they'll teach their children that. And by the time you hit grandchildren, those grandchildren are just like, well, that's the way it goes. And I think that's what we're seeing here. You don't only have to go back 60 years here to see that the US used to say, yeah, if you make a lot of money, you're actually responsible. You are getting a lot, you're responsible for giving a lot. For what it's worth, I used to think that made no sense. That you go, no, if you make a lot, you deserve to keep it. And certainly you do deserve to keep some of it. And there is the whole point about, don't you still want customers? That's how you're making this money. So anyway, you don't have to go back that far in US history even. So, oh, thank you, Margie. Margie says, I could have made a fabulous doula for the right people. And I think, yeah, the right people would be what it was. Oh gosh, yeah. Courtney brings up, so Courtney is a, well, it'll say in the thing here. So Courtney is an elementary school teacher. Courtney says she knows the feeling of like going into a space and somebody going, ooh, not for you. But being mask presenting and working in elementary schools comes with instructions like always leave the door open if girls are in the room. And I don't think that's a bad idea, because it's really easy at this point now for someone to make accusations. And oftentimes, sometimes certainly they're true, and sometimes they're, punitive, that somebody goes, oh, I'm just going to accuse you of something. I believe often those accusations are based in something. I don't remember if any of you remember, I was part of a, I'm stammering so much. I was an expert witness in a court case, a criminal case at the beginning of 2025. And there was a transgender man accused of doing things with an underage girl with parts he didn't have. I believe very strongly that girl experienced some of the things that she accused this transgender man of doing. So I think when there are accusations, there's almost certainly something behind it. It's not necessarily punitive, but it doesn't always land in the right place. This is a transgender man who's now been sitting in jail for, let's see, it's May? 3 years? Yeah, he's just been sitting in jail for 3 years because he was wrongfully accused of something, and this is why these types of this type of guidance exists. Always have the door open if girls are in the room. Oops, I'm supposed to toggle that. There we go. Oh, there you go. That's kind of nice. Margie says she acted as a doula for a friend in 2013, long before her egg exploded. Here comes the doodla. I like that. I like that. Maybe that would have been cool. I don't know. Oh my gosh. Yeah, see, here you go. Oh, okay, this is beautiful. So, and Dudko, I don't know if you're still here, but oh, you are. There's a couple things. So Angela transitioned gender is about 30 years ago now. 40 years ago, she says. She was in a handmade 3-piece suit for work at the bank with a teddy bear belt. Right, there you go. I mean, there's one of those little things. Oh, actually, geez, there's a story I told somebody. I think it was my sister. I stayed at my sister's house this past weekend, or when I went to Los Angeles. Um, I used to there were two companies that I worked for in Houston over the past decade or so. Yeah, let's say that a little more, 12 years, I think. One of them was stupidly conservative, like way more conservative than any people had, reason to be. And when I went there, I liked actually pushing gender norms. I was completely masculine presenting, okay? But I went into one point, I went into the I don't know what you call it, the coffee room, the place, like you got it. There was a coffee pot here. So I go in there and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a cup of coffee, whatever. I open up the cupboard and there was this pink, I think it was a Barbie cup. It was either Barbie or My Little Pony, one of the two. I can't think of what it was, but it was huge. It was like one of these, this, which by the way, this is my merchandise. Get it if you want at shop.purplepockland.com. But it was huge. It was like a 20-ounce cup. So it felt sort of, you're like My Little Pony, but you're going to end up like shaking for the rest of the day. This is kind of the way I saw it. But it was bright pink. And once I found it without fail, I used it because I'd walk into a place and I'd be like, gentlemen, and they'd all go, and I'm like, good coffee, huh? Put it down on the table in front of them because it made them uncomfortable. I think that's sort of like a teddy bear belt. There you go. So Dudko says, in my eyes, gender is just about sex. So it annoys them so much when people give it so much importance. So I'm a little I'm going to tell you I'm not sure exactly how you mean that. If you mean like sexuality kind of thing, like the actual act of sex, or if you mean like a biological definition of sex, which is pretty easy. Because part of my own theory of gender and identity is that, our sexuality is the idea of gender characteristics coming in. What we find beautiful is the way that I put it, and our own personal gender identity, as I've called it, is gender characteristics going out. How we want to appear beautiful, and I'm using beauty in a very old school aesthetics, branch of philosophy way. But if that's what you're saying, I'm all with that one. Totally true. Totally true. Dodgy archetype, remind me, when you said, are those things actually state mandated? Do you mean the FCC thing? Because that's a joke. If you're on amateur radio waves, the quick answer is yes. You do have to identify your station every 10 minutes. I generally try to do every 30 here. So it's not exactly close to the same, but so, I think this is a fascinating point. So, Dudko now says, we should already abolish capitalism. It's a hellhole. I got to finally get into protesting for socialism. I don't think it's capitalism that is the issue here. This, maybe this is not the hill to die on in an AMA. I don't think it's capitalism that is the problem. I think it is the way that government has become involved in managing identity, and in particular, the way the government is run now. Because the concept of capitalism, a free market, part of that, if you like put let's say a factory, if you put a factory somewhere and you need like fresh water, you need like a river running through it to let's say to cool something off, it is in your best interest not to fuck that up, right? Like that river, that environment there around your factory, it's in your best interest to keep that as pristine as possible, because otherwise you got to tear down that factory and build another one, which is pretty stupid. Like that's extremely wasteful. It's be a poor use of capital ultimately to do that. So long-term thought should imply that capitalism would maintain the customers, would maintain the people working for the company. Long-term thought would imply that. So I don't think what we're looking at here is a particular social system, because we can see this in every single social system. Really what happens is you get somebody who goes, well, I'm going to game this system, right? So you get somebody who builds a factory, and then the factory owner goes to the government and says, hey, can you give me license to fuck up this area? And the government goes, I can do that. How much money do you have? Oh, $1 million? Hey, that's going into my campaign fund. We see it in every single social system, political system. Let me say that. We see it in every political system, and that's the corruption. Whether or not somebody owns the means of production, I think is irrelevant. Whether or not somebody who produces is capable of manipulating the game to screw other people is. So anyway, again, I don't know if that was the hill I wanted to die on, but you got it. Oh, what else do we have? See, here we go. Again, another good point. So Courtney says this is what she hates about liberal democracy. It's just codified populism. The government will act against known science if it gets them votes. Right. I mean, ultimately the point is what we're looking at is you have a government that wants to manipulate the people. And Courtney, you brought up, I brought up the Declaration of Independence in something, and you said, well, it's not like that's a beautiful document. There's some ugly stuff in it, and very true. Try to do my best with what I got there, but anyway, yeah, when you have a government that's able to be overrun by people buying favors, like that's a horrible, horrible thing. So there you go. Thank you for that again, Courtney. You always have such good things to say. Thank you. Transmesia's hatred of trans people as opposed to fear. Oh, I don't think I knew that one. So Courtney says puberty blockers are legal. Oh my goodness, I realized there were so many comments here. Puberty blockers are legal and recommended in China because medical experts say they should be, not politicians, experts. Can you even imagine that? In Western society? That politicians go, you know what? I don't know the answer to this. What I'm going to do is defer to somebody who does. What do you think? And that person goes, well, I think X. And so, okay, we're going to do X because I'm a politician and I know nothing. Because what I did was possibly buy votes so that I could resell them again to somebody who just got a factory and wants to mess up the surrounding area. Do you see how I can bring it all the way back around? Let's see. Well, so here's, this is, I also don't want to say that everything in China is hunky-dory. Margie says that she thinks many Chinese state attitudes are influenced because their government was built around civil engineers rather than lawyers. It's fascinating. I didn't actually know that, but so thank you. This is a great point. So Dudko says, no, they live with their great-grandmother, and even though in their family they don't talk to each other as much, not all memories are lost. Let me rephrase what I meant. That saying that it takes 3 generations, it only takes 3 generations to erase a memory. Let me actually, geez, I'll go with exactly what I was saying there, like taxes. You look in the 1960s, taxes were like much higher, right? Up to 50%. I don't remember the exact highest, but 60% maybe. It was pretty high. It got really high. The point that I'm going to make here is that I was born in 1970, first of all. So when I was growing up, what I saw was in the 1970s, first of all, an oil shortage. And then right after that, we had, so Reagan came in and cut a bunch of taxes. It also happened that there were, I mean, this was I don't want to use the word comorbid so much, but it wasn't exactly Reagan cutting a bunch of taxes that stimulated a ton of economic growth, because it happened, a lot of that was worldwide. There were a bunch of things that started happening, different technology coming in, a ton of stuff. But we have learned lower taxes means higher economic growth. It was well known that wasn't the case. All right. I mean, there's the Reagan leaned on something called the Laffer curve, saying that the more you tax somebody, once you get above a certain threshold, it becomes more profitable to stop taxing them, to tax them less. You know, that basically you had a graph here. So one was the taxation rate. Jeez, let me just cough. Hang on. So Laffer related taxation rate to tax income, like tax revenues. That's what it was called. Point being that Reagan says, well, Laffer says this, we've seen it in action, but I think he said we need to move this guy way the hell down to say, well, it's 15%. And it's 15 as opposed to, say, 50. Because there was plenty of industry going on in the United States. It's not like there wasn't. But that's what I learned in high school. And if I were to teach my kid, if I had not had, if we hadn't had kids when I was already getting too old to pick them up, if I had taught that to my kid taught it to somebody else, that really lower tax rates, say 15% as the top, means more productivity, more economic growth, then by the third generation they have no idea where that came from. And so it's not necessarily that the memories itself, but rather the interpretation of what that implies. And hopefully that was more, hopefully that was a little better stated. All right, here we go. Mark says, actually, this is beautiful. Thank you. Mark says, a question on sexuality. Do I believe that real humans in porn will stop eventually because of AI? I think that's a great question. I would go a little bit out on a limb here and say, I'm going to qualify this because what I will say is yes. And then I'll let me qualify it. I would say yes, because it's using AI to generate fantasy, to generate situations that are fantastic. And for what it's worth, Artemisia Devine covers this a little bit. I mentioned her earlier in her work on fantasy. She mentions AI coming in and says, don't let this happen. And I think, yeah, don't let this happen, because it does mean that every fantasy is possible. Do you want to see somebody having sex with a cat girl? You could do that. Make it look amazingly good. What do you want to look at? What fetish do you have? And so ultimately you can end up using AI to target any fetish and make a whole industry around it, right? I mean, which has happened before. Because one could certainly claim that much of the porn industry caters to like this male gaze that goes, oh, girls from California with big fake cans and bleach blonde hair. So anyway, now I'm going to qualify it. So yes, I think AI would absolutely take over porn ultimately, and it's just because then we can satisfy every single crazy fantasy that's out there. The reason was, now I'm going to qualify this, is that AI, unfortunately, just uses a ton of energy. The reason why AI ultimately is going to end up, now here's what I'm going into opinion. The reason why AI, I think, ultimately is going to lose a whole lot of validity is because it just takes so much energy. And believe it or not, even if your politician has told you otherwise, refer back to that comment from Courtney on experts versus politicians. Even if you don't believe it, we are using oil at a faster rate than we are making it. And oil has a tremendous energy density. This is why we've been able to use so much energy, including the ability to make things like solar panels, because we have enough oil to melt sand, to purify silicon, and to make these wafers in ridiculously clean conditions. We can only do that because of oil. So as energy costs continue to increase, which we have seen since the 1970s, basically, even though it's not obvious here in the US, as they continue to increase, we're going to have to figure out some way to get around that. And one of those ways is to cut back on technology. So my qualified answer was absolutely, if AI were entirely cheap and free and easy in terms of energy costs, AI would take over. Given that it is not, given that it is remarkably high on energy consumption, and that AI data centers require a tremendous amount of environmental, what did I say? Require? I meant involve. AI data centers involve a tremendous amount of environmental impact. I'm going to say the answer is no. Now everybody's going, what was the answer? I don't even know. Yeah, I don't either. Hopefully it worked. All right, here we go. That one trans chick says, do you have any ideas for how we can make it less politically profitable to discriminate against us? Oof. It's the only reason politicians do it, and I'm blank on suggestions. Right now, I think that, yes, it is profitable to discriminate against us. The transgender, I'm going to say the gender diverse community, certainly right now, it used to be profitable for politicians, governments, to discriminate against, the LG and B parts of the community as well. So now we're looking greater queer community. It also used to be politically profitable for governments to discriminate, and I'm not pretending this is all over, but it was profitable for governments to discriminate against racial minorities and sexual, well, I'm not going to say minorities there, sex minorities like women. My only idea is that we're going to have to sit down and wait. I honestly, there's no reason for us to care about this. If you look back, not even that far, and Courtney is a queer historian, you don't have to go back that far in history to see that nobody gave a crap about sex or gender, sexuality, I should say, sexuality or gender. And I'm talking, 1800s, 1700s. It just wasn't important. There were just better things on people's minds. This is a crap answer to say, we'll sit around and wait, because I'm already, I don't have a whole lot of years left to me. I mean, I hope I do, but 30? Do I think I'm going to see the end of this? No. Do I think my kid will? I think the possibility is much better. And then if I think about my kids, I wholeheartedly believe that by the time we've hit that third generation, this seems like a theme coming up today. Because if you look at Gen Alpha, so I'm going to say hit that third generation, I think they're not even, they're going to go, why are we talking about this? Why did anybody talk about this? If you look at Gen Alpha, because the typical statistics, right? The queer community, it's, maybe 10% of the population. Okay, maybe it's more like 20 some odd percent of the population, because you have to worry about discrimination. And these are always self-identification numbers. And so somebody goes, oh, am I queer? No. And then they've got their, their Barbie cup. No. I love that punctuation. I have no idea why. So it's self-identified. So you look at Gen Alpha statistics. I mean, this is obviously Western society stuff. What the rest of the world will do, who knows? But if you look at Gen Alpha, that goes from not like 10%. Actually, because I'm even thinking about just gender diversity, it goes, instead of looking at more like 1%, 2%, you're looking at closer to 10. queer is even higher, 30-40%. I don't remember the exact number that I saw, but I have the feeling that, we're going to get a generation or two down, and the idea that sexuality or gender should even be questioned is going to be foolish. So that's my guess. I hate saying, well, wait around, I don't know what else to say. Oh, I did not move here it is. All right, since that's a lot of questions. All right, let me read some of these. Hang on. I'm sorry, everybody. Core motivation. That's a funny point. Oh, I want to put that up. Oh, this is a great question too. Another thing from Mark here. All right, I'm actually. Oh, okay. So thank you. So this one here. So Dudeco does say they meant sex as in the act of sex. So I like that. I appreciate that. That was really good. I'm just gonna throw this out. Angela says she came out to her bank by dressing as a fairy on Christmas Eve. I love that. I love that. I'm gonna toggle this one. Courtney makes a good point. All right, and then I'm probably gonna try to grab a few of these. But I want to go to this. My number 3. Now we're at number 3. My number 3 of the top 5 Marilyn Monroe movies. My top 3 is The 7-Year Itch. This came out in 1955. This was the one that made Marilyn Monroe. There's no doubt. It made her because it is 100% eye candy, misogynistic, using Marilyn Monroe as a sex object in a movie that also had Tom Ewell in it, who was also phenomenally successful right in that area. Wait, Tom Ewell? Yeah, Tom Ewell. So I don't want to just say Marilyn was in the right place at the right time. She played sex object so remarkably well. She knew how to play it well because she knew what men wanted. Men wanted sex. That's the long and short of it, I guess I'll say. It's truly amazing. She leaned into it. And you're going to go, why would that be one of your favorites? I will tell you, but I have to get to number 1. And it'll be more obvious. But that one was my number 3. So The 7-Year Itch, in part because the character she plays, first of all, has this childlike innocence. There's one scene where she and Tom Ewell are at a piano, and Tom Ewell, he's supposed to be playing Rachmaninoff. And Marilyn Monroe's like, Rachmaninoff. Oh, that just makes me so whatever, So I don't do a great Marilyn Monroe, apparently. Feel a bit foolish now. But then there's another part. That's his fantasy. Oh, I'm going to play Rachmaninoff for the blonde. Anyway, they end up playing chopsticks. Like, that was a fantasy. They end up playing chopsticks, and she's singing along with it, going bum 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 bum. Don't stop. Why are you stopping? And Tom Ewell, anyway, it goes on. But that childlike innocence is just beautiful because it was Marilyn Monroe. She was very, the world is great. The world is amazing. The world is beautiful, and the world loves me. And I wish all people had that. I wish all people had that belief. I wish all people had that experience. To be clear, Marilyn Monroe did not have that experience. That she had that belief, I think, is part of what makes this movie in particular so beautiful. That was number 3. So Courtney says, if a kid makes an accusation, believe them. Agreed. If anybody, I don't care who makes the accusation, believe them. I'm just going to go that far. If their parents make it, but they disagree, ask some serious questions. Yeah. And if they accuse somebody and then they get into a courtroom and somebody goes, is the person who did this in the courtroom right now? And the kid goes, no. Why? You also want to ask some serious questions. Did I ever mention that guy was convicted of all charges? Not going to talk any further. So Mark says, Creepy is a dangerous word that is used against dudes. Absolutely. I mean, there are very few creepy. It's not usually applied to women. I mean, unless they're like in Japanese like films like The Ring with hair over their head and, walking on all fours. And then you go, fucking creepy. Why are you doing that? Because it's Japanese. All right. Mark says creepy is a dangerous word used against dudes in large part because it is not carefully defined. 100%. But you also know some of these characteristics, right? I mean, there's that one guy. I mean, I don't want to say that this is. How do I want to say this? Many stereotypes exist because there are people who acted like that to the point that it became social norms and hysteria, then a stereotype. There are a lot of creepy dudes, and there are a lot of creepy dudes because the world rewards it. And I'm actually I'm gonna use that word because I'm gonna pull up something by Courtney really quickly here. The world rewards it. There was a fascinating study done relatively recently, because it's sort of common knowledge that testosterone makes mammals aggressive. This is why men are aggressive. Men are aggressive because they just have testosterone. Women are more nurturing and caring because women don't have testosterone. Anyway, it turns out that's 100% crap. There was a relatively recent study. Actually, it's been done on a few species, rats as well as bonobos. I think it was higher primates. Now I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was either chimpanzees. It was a higher primate. Chimpanzees, maybe gorillas, perhaps. But there were higher primates that were given more testosterone, and nothing happened. They didn't become more aggressive. They didn't hurt other primates, other members of the society. They were just fine. And I'm sure the biologists were like, "Oh shit, oh, we really thought something was going to happen there. Oh well." I mean, that's a great response for a biologist, but the a social psychologist or whatever, psychologists would come in and they said, well, the reason why is because aggression is rewarded in modern society. You get ahead by being a dick. Creepy dudes are rewarded, and so creepy dudes have become a stereotype because creepy dudes are rewarded. They get protected. I might name the Epstein files at this point. Creepy dudes are protected. Creepy dudes have immunity. So it's rewarded. The word is not carefully defined. What is a creepy dude? I mean, is that one guy who didn't talk at a party? Maybe. So I think there's both. It is dangerous. It's not carefully defined. And in some ways, the behavior that we associate with creepy is rewarded. So I'm a little unsure what you do with that, but I'm going to run with it. So speaking of being reward, Courtney brings up capitalism is never rewarded. Long-term planning, social values are planning. I think I might have missed something. It rewards capital and the ownership and acquisition thereof. That's why it's called capitalism. It's called capitalism because it starts by the acquisition of capital. Yes. It has never rewarded. I will disagree. The maintenance of something. How do I want to put this? I think you make a good point, and I think we're going to quibble over semantics more than anything. Capitalism, I don't think rewards necessarily acquisition of more capital, because at the end of the day, what it rewards, I'm going to say you have to take a step back from there. Like, the ownership is important because the ownership means you can make whatever decisions you want, but those decisions ultimately should be driven, at least theoretically, by people buying your product. If you have a good product, supposedly people are going to buy it. If you don't have a good product, supposedly they won't. But what defines a good product? At this point, at least in the United States, we have standards. I'm going to make a good comparison. Volvo, Swedish car company. Volvo has always had safety. I don't even know what I'd call it. Their level of safety requirements when they design a car have always exceeded US safety standards by, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like a minimum of 50%. Like it was a significant amount if you could numerically make it. So like crash test, whatever, structural, whatever. Volvo has always made a ridiculously safe car. Why? Not because Sweden regulates that or regulated them to that point, but because making a safe car means that you end up with people living to buy another safe car if they mess that car up. In the US, what we do is we set, ultimately, we set minimum standards. And so we go, well, this is a government doing this, saying we're going to set minimum standards and then just satisfy that, and you're good. You get our seal of approval. It's those seals of approval kind of thing that come from governments and make you go, oh, well, that seems plausible. I think that's partly where that goes. So I'm going to go back to my point of any social system. I don't care who has the means of production, who has ownership. Any social system, if somebody goes to game it, they can and they will. It's the gaming the system, not the social system itself. And I'll say that about communism. I'll say it about socialism. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to move on a little bit. Let me see. Kim Stanley Robinson. I don't know Kim Stanley Robinson. What do we got? Corruption so even though corruption can accrue in every system, it's way more difficult in a society where the people have more control rather than the small amount of grossly rich people. Okay, now we're talking about an oligarchy. And an oligarchy leans very heavily on the ability of those rich people being able to game the system. So, agreed with you in that the problem ends up being gaming the system, not necessarily so controlling gaming the system. So I agree with you. I think it's controlling gaming the system as opposed to the system. There we go. So now also capitalism encourages inhumane treatment of the workers. Yeah, that's if you can game that system. Yeah, because again, if you have a factory and you need that factory to run, you would want to make sure that you hire the best people and you make sure that those people get paid very well and that you train them exceptionally well. If you have a company and you go, you know what we're going to do? We're not going to train you. We're not going to make you better than you are now. You are setting yourself up for failure. I mean, I've had managers, because I think I've told everybody here, I've worked in executive up to executive management in software development companies. Or companies that in particular use software. Maybe that's the better way. Anyway, I've been executive management software person, okay? And without fail, anytime I've had a team, tried to build a team, you train those people. You get them as much training as you can. There's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, it shows that you trust them. It shows that you care about them. It shows that you want them to succeed. And when you want them to succeed, they want to succeed for you. It sounds ridiculous, but you know, that's the way it works. If you're friendly to somebody, they're friendly to you back. I've had several managers who have been like, why are we wasting time developing people? And I'm like, ooh, this is a company destined to fail. And for what it's worth, the last company I heard that failed. They went out of business like 3 months after I left. So I don't think it is capitalism that encourages inhumane treatment. It is companies that engage in short-term management of their companies, of their employees. But don't want to go off on management at all, for what it's worth. Oh gosh, here's a great point. Group says, I feel people in the U.S. would be a lot more positive about more taxes conversation if the government was actually using them to their benefit. There you are. I think that's true. Let me see. So Mark says, we'll get to better energy technology, hopefully in the future. I don't know what word it was. I don't want to say cautiously optimistic. I think we can hope. We don't have much petroleum. Petroleum is what helped us get to the point where we could develop new energy technologies. I don't know how much I've mentioned this. I've worked as a chemist. Primarily what I did was energy technology. As a graduate student, I worked on compound semiconductor solar cells. As a postdoctoral research, I worked on dye-sensitized solar cells. So I've been involved in this a significant amount. I mean, I still have friends involved in the solar industry in particular. It's a hard problem. It's a really hard problem. You actually reach a point where you go, can we use the technology that we have now to maintain it? The technology, I mean. So the crazy thing is you can make a bunch of solar panels, but one solar panel does not put out enough energy quickly enough to make another solar panel. So you have to make more solar panels in order to make one more. That's called total energy, total net energy, or yes, net energy. So petroleum has a huge net energy, solar does not. And so we struggle with that. So anyway, there's so much more I could say here, but I don't know if that's, I mean, as a scientist, it's funny for me to say this because all my life I've been like, well, science will save us. And then it started becoming obvious, science may not save us here. It's not going to save us from our own stupidity, for what it's worth. We end up being really stupid, and part of that stupidity is using the amount of energy that we do for the reasons that we do. So, Anita makes an excellent point. We can't make any oil exactly. That's the point, right? We got to wait for the Earth to process all the schmutz that goes into the Earth, and hopefully turn it into some sort of petroleum product. We can't make any of this. When we say oil production, that is 100% a falsehood. I mean, it's oil discovery and oil pumping out of the ground, and there's nothing else. So thank you for that clarification. I did not make that. I like that. I am going to number 4. Let's say number 4. My number 4. Oh my gosh, I just keep on getting further behind. I'm just gonna bump past some. Maybe I'll go back. Oh, hey, Louise. Louise is here. Hi, Louise. I'm gonna jump a couple of these forward. Ooh, what's this? Oh, I'm gonna go to this one, but let me see. So my number 4. I'm sorry, number 2. Going the wrong direction. My number 2 favorite Marilyn Monroe movie is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Now, maybe you were wondering, because I said in The 7-Year Itch, Marilyn Monroe leans hard into this objectification. And I said, I'm going to explain why I think that's why in that case it's still made for a decent movie. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. This is a movie from 1953. In that movie, Marilyn Monroe, and she's playing with Jane Russell as well. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes has diamonds are a girl's. There we go. I had to remember it. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. So it has that whole thing, which you've probably seen Madonna do. Anyway, it has that song, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. And what she's doing, so in some of these, especially in Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, the subtext of that entire movie is 2 women who are like, how can we take men for all that they're worth? There's actually another movie that came out right around the same time. Or no, I think it was How to Marry a Millionaire. It's close in there too. It's pre 7-Year Itch. But in How to Marry a Millionaire, it's similar. oh, who's the other one? It's Marilyn Monroe, Betty Grable, not Lana Turner. Nah, I'm blanking on her now. I can see her face and her very blasé expression. In any event, in that one as well, How to Marry a Millionaire and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, it is women who are just like, I'm screwing this. I'm screwing guys. I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to be taken well care of because that's what I deserve. And I kind of like that. So that's why I'm okay with The 7-Year Itch, because there are two other movies, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire. So I put that at number 2, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. There you go. Here we go. So Dodgy Archetype says testosterone doesn't actually make men more aggressive. Yes, we've so entirely true. Oh, look at that. Dodgy Archetype. Testosterone doesn't make, I can't ninja you. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, this is so well put. Testosterone makes men more status seeking. I think that's society that makes men more status seeking. A sex hormone is just a sex hormone. It runs biochemistry. Biochemistry obviously affects us emotionally, as obviously affects us physically. It can affect a lot of things, but at the end of the day, like behavior, much of behavior is voluntary. Like you can choose not to be a dick. I'm just throwing that out there for our current administration and many people in the manosphere. You can choose not to be a dick. We'd all love it if you did. All right, I'm going to pop this one up because I think this is good. All right, Dudeco brings up again, I don't think that in Gen Alpha people won't care about gender and sexualities. They're on the younger side of Gen Z, and a couple of weeks ago, their classmate called them drunk, and at some point he said, please don't. I'm not sure I understand that. Drunk. I may have missed this. And there's no doubt that in every generation, because I'm going to go out on a limb here. I mean, Angela isn't not quite boomer, but how about Louise? I mean, Louise, I don't remember when you were born. If you want to drop it in the chat, it'll tell us. But Louise is a transgender woman who transitioned in the 1970s. I mean, absolutely possible to be baby boomer era. I don't really want to say that baby boomers in general mess things up. And to a certain extent, you can say, well, what we're seeing around us is very much the result of baby boomer upbringing and ultimately politics. So I don't think that you can just make a blanket statement, because you always have some people who are good and some people who are bad, right? There are men who actually are not dicks. Women who are really nice. So anyway, sorry, I meant to go the opposite direction there. No, I wasn't even listening to myself. Men who are not dicks, women who are. So statistically, what I'm seeing is that Gen Alpha tends to be more sexuality and gender neutral. What word do I want to use? Neutral's okay. They tend not to care about it as much as, say, some baby boomer who's going to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put you through conversion therapy because I believe you should not be the person you are. So great point. Thank you so much. Great point. Louise says, I saw a meme about Stephen Miller that said, to be fair, he doesn't know he's ugly because he can't see himself in a mirror. That's a great vampire reference. I don't remember when that particular myth entered the vampire lore. And actually, here I want to prove my point about only takes 3 generations. Usually if you were to say, well, vampires can't go out in sunlight, right? This is Anne Rice's mythology. That's close enough. Anne Rice lore depends heavily on on vampires, right? Dying in the sun. That comes from a 1922 movie, Nosferatu, which was remade recently. Anyway, it comes from 1922, which is a fascinating thought, right? I mean, 1922, if you just go, can a vampire go out in the sun? People go, no! But revenants, which is to say, not exactly living bodies, when you look at lore that goes back to, in this case, myth, the myth of vampires, revenants, you can see, ancient, in Asia, across Europe, South American for sure, less so in North America. It just struck me. Anyway, you can see this in many different mythologies. The idea that these revenants kind of had to walk around during the day because they're like, they have to be able to find somebody when they're at work or something to go, hey, I need something. That's part of the myth, is that they come back from whatever demise they had because they need to demand something. So anyway, I was way off topic, but it's hilarious. That was really funny. All right, here we go. Why do I think that trans men are way more comfortable with expressing femininity than trans women with expressing masculinity? Oh, I have a quick answer for this. Because one direction is really, really strongly hated. Many people will disagree with me on this. I'm not trying to say that transgender men necessarily always have it better than transgender women. In, I believe, much of Western society, white male patriarchy white Christian patriarchy is the norm. And again, this is not because it's so great, but because I think we've gotten to a point where we just go, well, yeah, why wouldn't white Christian men be in charge? So where I'm going to go with this is to say that what I did, and I actually have done a whole live stream about this, what I did was reject that. In Western society, a white patriarch. In a patriarchy, the highest accomplishment you can reach is to be born a man. Which means I rejected that. I rejected the highest accomplishment you could have in a patriarchy. And that makes a patriarchy have to step back and go, why would somebody do that? I had good reasons. I don't like masculinity. And I don't think that an assigned sex at birth should determine who you are. It's that part that I think white patriarch looks at and goes, oh shit. If she believes that, maybe other people are going to believe that. I challenge not just social norms, but the underpinning of it, which is a bioessentialist argument that being born with a particular external obvious genitals means something. I challenge that. All of us here, Angela, Anita, Margie, Courtney, we all do. We challenge this idea that identity should be based on some doctor looking at you and going, "Yep, yeah, okay, that one's going to be." Hopefully, they're not chucking them, but it's always a funny joke. They go, "Oh, hope you got a net behind it." Ooh. Well, fortunately, Mrs. Johnson, you've got a bouncing baby boy. I turned that into a shitty joke. Sorry. Anyway, we challenge this, that the idea that the rest of your life, the power that you should acquire, should be based on the way that you are at birth. And so I think that transgender women expressing femininity is really, really hated because we challenge all the challenge the underpinning assumption about white patriarchy. Transgender men, on the other hand, lean into it. So they go, oh, a white patriarchy goes, see, you're coming the right direction. You're coming the right direction. I want to put that in quotes. Anyway, I guess all I'm trying to say here is that when a transgender woman expresses masculinity, it's leaning into that unfortunate sense of power, sense of entitlement that I think most of us don't want to have, and which is why we reject it. I don't know. I feel like I went a long time on that particular comment, so hopefully that went what you were asking there. Courtney, thank you. Courtney brings up that Volvo is outsold by 10 other companies, 9 of which have far worse safety records, right? I mean, it's easy to have a worse safety record than Volvo. Volvos are expensive because Volvos last a long time. Volvos tend to be very durable, as the same thing. Not really. Because you could just not use it, right? You park it in a garage. You know, there's so many people who are like, oh, I'm going to buy a Corvette and chuck it in a garage, and they never drive it. Lasts 30 years, and it's got like 2,000 miles on it because all they do is like, you know, occasionally take it out on Topanga Canyon. Which you did if you didn't grow up in the valley in LA, you may be going, out on what? I'm sorry. Anyway, yes. I mean, if we want to talk about capitalism here, right? I think this is part of it. The far worse safety record is made possible not because of necessarily a better product, but because there are loopholes that get put into all of these things, so that it destroys competition. Is what I'm saying. I'm gonna leave it at that. But oh yeah, we could go on this for so much. Let me see. So Courtney says the Earth will never make new hydrocarbons. For what it's worth, if you look at petroleum chemistry, there's a lot of debate on why this ever happened anyway. I mean, so Courtney says they only happened because there was nothing to break down plants when they first arrived. It's why the Carboniferous period even happened. You could, and I'm seeing there's actually a couple of comments further down. There are ways to get Carboniferous, how about I say organic matter into anaerobic conditions, right? I mean, peat bogs is a great one. You can chuck, there are a lot of Celtic cultures that used to do symbolic sacrifices and then chuck hesitant to call it victim, because oftentimes it was like a sacrifice, but chuck the body, there we go, into a peat bog, and there it is. It was an anaerobic, largely anaerobic conditions. It gets preserved, and then at some point somebody's rowing a boat and goes, oh, what's this? Oh God, it's a body. What the so anyway, there's a couple of comments in there, but yeah, I mean, there's ways on the planet to get to anaerobic conditions, because even if you just get near close to a swamp, close to volcanic activity, you can have enough hydrogen sulfide to prevent that as well. So anyway, that's going way off. We're gonna end up losing viewers. Okay, so Carol Channing was and Gentlemen Preferred, the 7-Year Itch. Is that what you're saying, Louise? I think start on Broadway in the 7-Year Itch, which, as long as I'm here, I will do my #1 Marilyn Monroe movie on the eve of her 100th birth anniversary is. It's called Don't Bother to Knock. You're gonna go, I'm sorry, what? Right. It's from 1952, right at the very beginning of her career, like not even, it's around the time of Monkey Business, where people were like, oh, is this like a person? Oh, how about them apples? Don't Bother to Knock. In this, Marilyn Monroe is portraying the way it was supposed to be portrayed, was somebody with pretty major sociopathic and psychotic issues. I'll leave it at that. There is mention of suicide attempts, various things. Don't Bother to Knock is not a comedy by any stretch of the imagination, which is weird because that's really what Marilyn Monroe did. The reason why I love this so much is because Marilyn Monroe acts it beautifully. truly stunning acting capability. The kind of thing that you watch and go, I would never have thought that this person, if I look back to some of these others, Bus Stop, The 7-Year Itch, I would never have thought that this person had this capacity. And I want to mention, very early film. Bus Stop was 4 years later. The 7-Year Itch, 3 years later. So this is a tremendous movie where she does an amazing job telling this story and portraying somebody that you can see is really on a razor's edge of, can I get the guy, or am I going to end up having to like slice a piece of him off so they can hold on to him after he leaves me? Not that story is so amazingly fun. Just that's why that's my number one Marilyn Monroe movie. So tomorrow, poor Marilyn, you didn't last long enough for me. I'll just say that much. So love you, Marilyn. All right, let me see. I'm not gonna do it. So Courtney brings up plants get composted naturally, so that accumulation required to make coal and oil can't happen anymore. We talked about a little bit, whatever. But what else do we have? Oh, here we go. See, look. Louise says, here's a baby boomer thing. They brought civil rights. Totally true. Yeah, thank you. I mean, great point. There are some people who have been awesome, and then there are the people who go on into politics as opposed to caring about people. There you go. So it's a bummer. Okay, so Duke brings up, first of all, hi Duke. Did we see a film called See the TV Glow? I have not. I want to say Margie brought this up. I'll see if I can remember. So Duke says they've not seen the film, but have heard it referenced here and there. Fun expression though. Yeah, see the TV glow. I'm trying to remember who's in that, but I know that it has been well received by the queer community at the very least, which probably means that it wasn't going to get anything on like real movie theater playing whatever, real theaters. Anyway, I don't know. I really should have really should watch that at some point. There's another one. Oh, for the life of me, I can't remember. There was an author I interviewed. Oh gosh, I don't know. Probably it was close to a year ago now. Mary Kathleen Mahuron. There we go. She lives in Vermont. Louise. No, wait, you're not in Vermont. Somebody I know is in Vermont, other than Mary Kathleen. But her son made a movie about I think it's called Always Jacqueline. Is that what it was? Always Jacqueline? I still have yet to see it, but her son made a movie about like literally their next door neighbors when the kid was growing up. And it was it's about the next door neighbor who is always transgender and was like, this is who I am. And finally, and her parents said, okay, well, we're gonna support that. You'll notice I spoke about a totally different, right? I didn't talk about See the TV Glow. Talked about a totally different film, but I did kill time, I guess. Sometimes you gotta go, is that all you do, Amy? Possibly. Very possibly. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Angela says, when you become more confident as a transgender woman like she is, you realize that we are all a combination of masculine and feminine. I'm paraphrasing a tiny bit. Some of Angela's traits are still associated as masculine. And I completely agree. Going way back in when I was a kid, I've always enjoyed the idea of it's just magical stuff. And if you look at New Age, the New Age tradition, I don't know what to call it. They pretty much have taken a Western society capitalist approach to the universe, which is to say that whereas Western society says the economy can always grow, New Age theory sort of says that you can always be happy. Going back a little bit further in magical tradition, you get the idea that there are cycles. You look at today, and you don't have to care that much about cycles, right? You go, whether it's spring, whether it's summer, whether it's autumn, whether it's winter, you're in a house. You can get in a car and go somewhere. You don't have to worry about, are we going to have enough food for winter? Because you almost certainly do. To a certain extent, we have a luxury not to have to worry about some of these questions. So anyway, older traditions, and this is partly why I think that I'm going to turn this into a point. Older spiritual traditions highly valued the idea of that integration of the masculine and the feminine. And I've brought up too that the pendant that I designed here that I've worn now for a decade, it implies part of that unity, that you have to have the masculine and the feminine, and some of that, I got something on my monitor there. Some of that comes from the idea that there's, because they classify actions by gender, the idea that you have to start something which is considered a masculine property or in masculine action, and then you have to complete it, nurture it, receive it, nurture it, complete it, and that's a feminine type of action. Where I'm going with this is to say that human history is based on the idea that you need both. Much of human history, we've reached a point where we don't have to, where we have the luxury to ignore that, and we have the false scientific sense that the two are distinct. And I mean, we talked. I don't remember when it was, but I did a live stream about human development, how both men and women make both sex hormones. And much of biology is tremendously misunderstood, although possibly the better way to say this is misrepresented by politicians who, as Courtney so merrily pointed out, typically are not experts. So we're looking a lot at politics here when when we think about where masculinity and femininity come from. So, how they fit into social norms today. So I think it's a great point. We are all some masculine, some feminine. And at this point, I mean, while it's difficult for me, like I don't even like wearing pants because I see it as an expression of masculinity, what that is expression of a masculine social norm. And that's different. So yeah, I think, when we try to separate social norms so as strictly as we do, that ends up being the problem. So thank you, Angela. I think that was a great point. I think Anita makes a good point. Is the Volvo discussion still relevant now that it's a Chinese company? I'm not sure I can comment on that. I mean, it's a great point. Thank you, Louise. Oh, Carol, right. Carol Channing originated Lorelei Lee in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes on Broadway. Thank you so much. I'm trying to remember because The 7-Year Itch had some other production, because partly in the movie, like a friend comes over. I'm trying to remember. Tom Ewell's friend, or like his business associate, comes over, and Marilyn Monroe's in the kitchen, straddling a refrigerator for what it's worth, and with a fan on her. It's not that important. I told you it was a big sex objectification thing, so there you go. Anyway, the guy goes, "Oh, who do you have in the kitchen?" And Tom Ewell goes, "Maybe it's Marilyn Monroe." And I believe it's supposed to be somewhere else. Whatever that production was before, Marilyn Monroe was not in it, so it was kind of funny. But the end. Anyway, thank you for Carol Channing there. This is Duke says he doesn't really know what to make of Marilyn. Some folks have surmised that she may have been a sex indifferent, homo-romantic asexual, which obviously contradicts the media's assumption of her. Well, contradicts. She had two very different lives, right? One was, look at me as this sex object, which made her money, right? I mean, it was, she knew what buttons to push. Definitely knew what buttons to push. And obviously, some of that worked. She ended up sleeping with JFK. I mean, ultimately led to her demise as well. I mean, but her private life, she married Arthur Miller, right? I mean, this was not a guy that, you don't, when you go, who are the great romantics of history? You don't go, oh, Arthur Miller. You just, Joe DiMaggio, like maybe, but Joe DiMaggio was still supposedly relatively cerebral, at least with Marilyn. Arthur Miller, she was like, I really want to be able to talk to people. I really want to be able to express my ideas. And that was part of what I loved about her. And that's why Don't Bother to Knock ends up as like I said, the number one, is because it is somebody who's like, listen, I understand enough about this psychology shit to play a character dependent on this psychology shit. So it's neat. Anyway, thank you. Duke, I do remember, sorry. I think I actually said they. I've come to a point where I tend to do just to you everybody's a they at this point when I read it, because sometimes I'm looking at like a user 421 and I go, okay. So I'm sorry. I try to remember when I know the people. I will absolutely use he him. So Duke also says he's tested the waters, and with Dr. Z's most recent video confirms he's cisgender. There you go. Just happened to be in touch with femininity. And I think I want to pop back down and just go, yeah, why do we care what the percentage is? Can I just be somebody who's me? I know maybe I'm asking too much. Am I asking too much? I don't know. Oh, wait. So Margie says she avoided I Saw the TV Glow because she thought it would be severely triggering. I'm sorry, Margie. I didn't realize that. You saw a documentary about it. Oh, it's crazy. Okay. Margie says she almost never wears pants in spite of her family name, right? How about that? This is great. Dudeco's saying they personally love messing with social norms to the point at which conservatives feel uncomfortable about it. But they also can't tell them to stop because it's not that far. That's what I'm saying. I really, really, truly, I think that's where what we should be able to do. We just mess with social norms, because social norms, as I've said in a lot of forums, social norms are not laws. Social norms are norms. They're only norms because many people think that it should be normal. That's very different from, being something that needs to be enforced. So I think it's beautiful. Louise says, don't sex hormones really have other functions? Yes, there are significant other functions. And then she goes on to say, don't we just emphasize the sex influence? Yes, very much. I think we emphasize the sex part of it because, for the most part, the bulk of those hormones are made by gonads, and that's the only reason why we emphasize that. But when we were talking the other day, estrogen has a significant impact on brain function, definitely bone density, or bone growth. Testosterone regulates a whole lot of biochemical functions. And that's kind of the point when, I've talked about this a lot of times. We shouldn't think so much about what gonad does a body have, but more what sex hormone is dominant in that body, and whether or not that dominant sex hormone is even being used efficiently or effectively, is even being used. And that comes down to a point where you look at medicine as a single body problem. I just sounded like a physicist here. Not a three body problem, but you look at biochemistry and medicine, the actual management of symptoms, whatever, is looking at somebody and going, well, what's your particular problem? And how do we manage your problem based on your biochemistry? For the most part, we don't do that. We want to go, oh, well, science says that we have these strict categories, and it's almost never true. So yes, sex hormones drive a whole lot of biochemistry, a tremendous amount of biochemistry. I didn't even remember to point out estrogen. I don't know how much I want to say this. Estrogen dominance leads to a much better immune system, much greater adaptability of the immune system as well. And it's fascinating because it turns out testosterone doesn't necessarily suppress immune responses. It's just testosterone runs other pathways that fix other things. So testosterone dominant bodies tend to get ill more quickly, more easily. So yeah, there's a lot of things that it handles. So yeah, here we go. So Margie brings the same thing up. So let's see. Anita says, before they came out, they used to like the argument that they're a man who just embraces the feminine. That was what I would say too, because I think that makes sense. So now Anita says they're living their truth. They lean into masculine and feminine being social constructs to overcome. I mean, there's reasons those social constructs came about. And now certainly we need to withdraw the political influence that continue to make those social norms, social constructs that are antagonistic. You know, the idea that the masculine and the feminine must be antagonistic. I mean, I can remember, I don't even remember, like in the 1970s, they used to have, you know, battle of the sexes. It was called the Battle of the Sexes. You even had the Battle of the Network Stars involved in that. And so I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous. So, Angela says it may not be the safest, but she loves her Jaguar. I'm gonna tell you. Yeah, British cars. Not the safest, no. So Duke says there's no way anyone can say that skirts are vastly feminine because majority of the people he sees, regardless of their assigned sex at birth, 98% wear pants. No, I know. I mean, pants are fine for whatever. Not to mention, like, there are, if you could go to Scotland, I suppose there are kilts, and then you could look in Middle Eastern culture. There's a lot, they wear a lot of robes and stuff. So it's like social norms, lots of dumb social norms. I'm gonna jump through a couple of them. Maybe skirts are just the fanciest pants. Perfect. It's perfect for Margie right there. But so group says, remember when jeans were hardcore masculine coded? Absolutely. Because it was so I maybe some of you remember this, some of you not. But when Levi's, yeah, was it Levi's who had Dockers? I think it was Levi's. When Dockers came out, there were like, they weren't, you know, denim. You know, it was like a softer fabric and it was okay, but it wasn't for going to an office and going in with your 3-piece suit, right? So it was different so it was still casual, but it was sort of in between. Like you could go, well, I'm wearing my wool suit because I'm going to go and be a man in the office, or in between, well, I'm wearing my, you know, my jeans so that I can go out and raise and rope broncos. This was in between. It was a crazy, you know, it wasn't raising and roping broncos, but it also wasn't a professional representation. And so I remember when Dockers came out, and there were people who were like, I would never wear Dockers. Men who are like, I would never wear Dockers. That's ridiculous, and it's stupid. Yeah, it's the stupidest thing. So, anyway, so I do remember when jeans were hardcore masculine coded. Anita says no. But Anita also grew up in Germany, and I grew up in Los Angeles, where there was a whole ton of fashion that was possibly different from the rest of the world. So there you go. If you want to properly mess with people's sense of gender, show up to choir in a dress and full makeup, and be the only person who can sing an F2. If you're not aware of this, F2 is a pretty low note. So, what would that be? 12. It's only a few. It's way toward the end of a piano keyboard. What do we got? What do we got? Oh, it's 4 o'clock. I wasn't sure if I was going to go with playing a game or not, but I really appreciated that we're just kind of throwing around a bunch of thoughts here. Man, I always say I'm going to do this more often, and then I never do. But here we are. Maybe I need to do this much more frequently, once a month or something, because I love this idea of just kind of, we all throw comments out there, and I, not that I have to riff on them, but that we all riff on all the comments. So I quite like that. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and let this one shut down now. It's 4 o'clock. I will be back on Tuesday. No idea what I'm going to talk about, because why bother thinking about that now? And but yeah, I'll be back on Tuesday. We'll talk about something for reals. I'm gonna try to knock out the hypnosis thing tomorrow, because I know I also said I was gonna make the one of those members only videos like open, like not members only, but I have to change a few things with the way it's set up on the streaming platform. So tomorrow, that's my intent to do that. And then I'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll talk about something new. Thank you so much for all of you who show up here. This is always amazing to me. I'm always stupidly, just, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Because I was going to say this first of all. I was looking at statistics, analytics. I'm looking at analytics at some point on a streaming platform, and it says that 15% of people who view my content watch me on a television, which is weird. I'm like, wow, why am I being seen on a television? So I think that's cool, and I'm always so remarkably honored to do these things. I'm always honored that people come and listen to them. So thank you so much. I will see you on Tuesday. Talk soon. Bye.